guys, welcome to part 2. It's time to wrap our handbag in some leather paper, and we're gonna need a piece that is 29 inches by 10 inches. And that is the cover for the bag. Then we're gonna need 2 pieces for the pockets, and these are 5 inches by 6. And let's start with those. These are gonna be the closures for our pockets, and they're gonna be wrapped around like so. You can use one of the pieces you cut out from the chipboard, or you can use the tag die itself. Place it so the tip hits the edge of the 6-inch side and draw around the pattern. And you're gonna move it so the curves line up and draw until you reach the sides. Then you're gonna grab some scissors and cut inside of the pencil lines. And don't worry if there's still some from the pencil left, you can just use an eraser to get that off. Now you can take the piece you just cut and place that on top of the other and draw from that. And then cut that out as well. Now you have 2 pieces. Let's just see how it looks over the pocket. I am very happy with this. So let's take the piece for the cover. We're going to cut off the corners from one of the ends. Find the middle of your paper and measure 1.5 inch from that and make a mark at the edge of the paper on both sides. Then move your ruler so the 0 hits the mark and turn the ruler until the 4-inch mark hits the edge of the side. Then draw a line from 0 to 4. Then do the same thing on the other side. 0 on the mark and the 4-inch mark on the edge of the side and draw a line. Then you're going to use a craft knife to cut off the corners. You can use a metal ruler, or if you have one of these, be sure to cut up against the metal side. We don't want to ruin anything. Then you're going to take your scissors and just round up the new corners you made, just so they are not too sharp. And this is going to be the front of our bag. Now you're going to take the 2 big pockets and we're going to start with the small one. Roll out your leather paper and place the pocket in the end with the straight edge. We want the edges to line up. And we want about 1/2 inch of the leather paper on each side of the pocket. If you want, you can draw around the pocket to make sure that you glue it in where it needs to be. Then take your glue and cover the back of the pocket completely and make sure that you go as close to the edges as possible. And place that on your leather paper, burnish, and wipe away any excess glue. We want it to be able to bend like this. And just to make sure that it falls in the right place, we're going to take a scoreboard and score just under the pocket. Then you're going to take the inside of the bag and cover the bottom completely in glue. Then we're just going to borrow our chipboards and place in between the pocket and the side with the 3 small rooms. And press the bottom down. Use a Bonefolder to burnish. Go all the way around and into the small rooms on the sides. And just make sure you get everything. Now we can fold up the pocket side without it being too tight. And now we're going to take the big pocket and glue it onto the other side. Again, cover the back completely in glue and go as close to the edge as possible. And place it so the bottom of the pocket is against the bottom of the inside of our bag. And just make sure that you can close it up before burnishing. Now let's just see how this closes up. We don't want the top to be too tight, so be careful not to fold it. And now it's time to add some straps. We're going to use 2 pieces from the Photogenic black trim. You're going to cut 2 pieces that are 18 inches long. As I mentioned earlier, I did cut mine a bit too short. I cut them at 15. And that is a little tight. Add your glue to about 1 inch of the ribbon. On the side with the smaller pocket, you're going to place it against the edge. Press that down and burnish with your Bonefolder. And use a cloth to get rid of all that excess glue. Then take the other ribbon and again add glue to about 1 inch of it. And on that side with the big pocket, you want to place it 1/2 inch from the edge. So use a ruler to measure before pressing it down and burnish with your Bonefolder and dab off the excess glue. So that was one side. Then you're going to turn the bag around so the other end is sticking up. Now take the other end of the ribbon and again add some glue to about 1 inch of it. And on the side with the small pocket, place it against the edge. Press it down and dab away excess glue. And now for the other one, add your glue about 1 inch and place it 1/2 inch from the edge. And while those are drying, we can continue with the pockets. Grab a scoreboard and take the pocket flaps. And from the straight edge, you want to score at 3/4 of an inch and at 1 3/4. And you're going to do that to the other one as well. 3/4 and 1 3/4. Then you're going to fold them at the score lines, both of them. Grab one of the pockets. Add glue all over the 3/4 flap and place the back of the pocket up against the score line and burnish. Now do the same thing with the other one. Add your glue and place the back of the pocket against the score line and burnish. And wipe away any excess glue, and now you have 2 pockets. And we're going to glue them on like this so that 1/2 inch of the pocket is sticking out on the side with the thin pocket. So yeah, you're going to leave 1/2 inch of that side without glue and then cover the rest of it completely in glue and go as close to the edge as possible. Same thing on the bottom, leave 1/2 inch without glue. I forgot, whoops. Luckily it didn't stick. Place the pocket against the side of the bag and burnish with your Bonefolder. And do the same thing with the other pocket. And remember to leave the opposite side without glue this time. And burnish. Now you can add your magnets. Place a piece of Scor-tape on your pocket. Then place a magnet and make sure that it's stuck. Then place another magnet on top of that and another piece of Scor-tape. Then close up the pocket and give that a little pressure. Now your other magnet should stick to the flap. Then do the same thing on the other side. Make sure that it's stuck and close up the pockets. Now we're going to cut off a bit from the top of the cover. Pull it down so it's a little tighter and then make a mark on each corner. Turn it around and do the same thing on the other side. And then open it and place the bag itself upside down. Press down the cover top so it lays flat on your mat. Then draw a line 1/2 inch from the edge on both sides. Now you're going to make a 1 inch line from the corner mark to the line you just draw. And you want to round it up a bit so it's not completely straight. Use your scissors to cut that out. And this is what it should look like. Now you can take that piece you just cut off and place it in between the marks on the other side. Then draw from that. Like so, and cut that out as well. And now you can tuck the top of the bag under the straps. And now it's really starting to look like a bag. Now before we start decorating it, we just need to add a couple of magnets to the pocket in the front. And we're going to do it the same way as we did on the other pockets. Place a couple of pieces of Scor-tape so they can reach the middle part of the bag inside. Place 2 magnets on each, like so. Another piece of Scor-tape, and close that pocket up and give it some press from the inside of the middle to make sure that they grab it. And now we can start decorating. We're going to start with the cover. So let's get out the beautiful papers. We're going to use this sheet for the outside cover. Place your cover on the back side of the paper so the edges line up at the bottom. And then draw all the way around the cover. Now with your scissors, you're going to cut about 1/16 of an inch next to the line, so that our paper is going to be just a teeny tiny bit smaller than the cover. And let's see how it fits. You can always cut off a little more if you need to. Then ink all the edges around the paper. And then you're going to cover just about 1/3 of the paper with glue and place that on top of the cover. This way you still have plenty of paper to hold on to while you wiggle the paper in place. Then use your cloth to burnish and remove excess glue. Now you can add your glue to the rest of the paper and let that stick to the cover. Burnish with your cloth and remove excess glue. Don't mind the magnets. Then we're going to cover the front and the back, and for that we are going to use this sheet. Start by removing that white strip at the top of the paper. Turn the sheet so the top is up and cut off 2 inches. Then we're going to use the 10-inch piece and cut that in half so that we have 2 pieces that measures 10 by 6 inches. If you need to trim off just a little more, then do so, and then ink the edges on both pieces. Take one piece and cover the back in glue and place that in the front of the bag. You can smoothen it out with a cloth and use a Bonefolder on the inside to burnish. Now you can take the other piece and glue that onto the back. And again, you can go inside the pocket to burnish. Now we need to add a closure, and I'm going to use this one. And of course, depending on what kind of closure you have, you might have to do this a little different. But I'm going to close up my bag and put the closure on top, so it is where I want it to be. And I'm going to start with the little lock. So I'm making sure that my closure is in the middle of my bag. Then I'm carefully going to open it so the lock stays in place and draw a couple of marks with my pencil in the holes, and then poke through the paper with my pick tool. And then I'm going to put the lock back on and put a couple of brads through the holes. Then I'm going inside the pocket to secure them, and I am going to use my pick tool to separate the tails. And then I'm using my Bonefolder to flatten them down. And then I'm adding a couple of strips of Scor-tape over the tails to keep them in place. And now I can add the other part. So I'm placing the closure over the lock again and making sure that it's still in the middle of my bag. Then I am marking up the holes and poking through them with my pick tool. Placing the closure again and putting my brads through the holes. And again, I'm using my pick tool to separate the tails and my Bonefolder to flatten them down. And adding a piece of Scor-tape over the tails. Now let's just make sure that it works, and that closes up perfectly. Now we can move on to the pockets, and for this we are going to use this sheet with all the pretty flowers. First, let's remove the white strip on top. Then we're going to cut 2 pieces that measures 5 7/8 by 5 7/8. Then we're going to grab the tag die again and place that at the top of our piece. You want it to go in as far as on the pocket itself, so it matches with the die cut on that. Now we just need to make sure that it looks okay, and then we can do the other one. You can put the other piece on top as a stencil to see how far in you need to have your die. Put that through your machine and ink the edges on both pieces. Remove the anti-stick piece from your magnet and place the paper on top. And burnish with your Bonefolder. And do the same thing with the other pocket. And again, remember to burnish. And that was the pockets. Now we need to do the flaps. And for that, we're going to use the same paper, but the other side. And we're going to cut two pieces that are 4 1/8 by 5 7/8. Then we're going to stick those under the pocket flap and draw up against the pattern. Then we're going to cut about 1/16 of an inch from the pencil line. And make sure it fits, and then ink the edges. Now you can glue them onto the pocket flap. Place something hard underneath the flap so you can burnish. And then just do the same thing on the other side. Soften up the paper so it can bend without ripping. And now the outside of our bag is completely covered. We still need to add something inside the pocket flaps, but we're going to do that later. First, we're going to do the inside of the cover, and for that, we're going to use this sheet of paper. I think this is my favorite piece from the whole collection. I love the peacock feathers. Place it under the cover so it lines up with the top of the pocket and draw around it like we did with the other piece. And again, you want to cut about 1/16 of an inch from the pencil line. So it is a little bit smaller than the cover. Now you want the bottom to be up against the pocket and make sure that it fits everywhere. Then ink the edges. Start by adding your glue to only 1/3 of the paper and press that down. Burnish with your Bonefolder and glue down the rest of the paper. Now we're going to do the inside of the pockets, and for that we are going to use this sheet of paper. Remove the strip on top and cut off 3 inches from the side, giving you a 9-inch piece. Then you're going to cut 2 pieces that are 5 7/8. Now, because one of the pockets is a little bit smaller, you might need to cut a bit more of the side. Just be careful that you don't cut off too much. For the outside of the pocket, we're going to take this sheet with the lovely ladies. And we're going to cut off 4 inches from the bottom and 3 inches from the top. And then from the left side of the top piece, we're going to cut off 3 inches, leaving us with a 9-inch piece. And then for the bottom piece, we're going to cut off 3 1/4 of an inch from the right side, giving us a piece that is 8 3/4. Then we're going to tuck the pieces into the pocket so it lines up at the top. And then put something hard underneath so you can draw the pattern from the die cut. And do that with both pieces. And now you can just place the die so it lines up with the pencil lines. We totally should have done this with the other pockets as well. Don't know why I didn't think of that. But yeah, do that to both pieces and double check that they fit. Now you can ink the edges on all 4 pieces of paper and glue them in. And remember to burnish all the pieces and remove the anti-stick pieces from your Scor-tape. And be careful when you're burnishing around the magnets. I prefer using a cloth for that. Then you're going to take this piece that you have left from before and cut off a piece that is 5 7/8. And then cut 2 strips at 1 1/4. These are going to be on the inside of the big pocket. Make sure that they fit and round up the corners with the 10mm corner punch. Ink the edges, glue them in, and burnish. Then for the other pocket, we're gonna do 2 strips that are 5 7/8 by 1/2 inch. And round up the corners on those as well with the 10mm. Ink the edges and glue them onto the insides of the pocket. And burnish. And now for the outside, we're gonna use what is left of the sheet and grab a new one. Cut off 6 inches from the bottom and cut a strip from that at 1 1/4 and the rest of that at 1/2 inch. Then you're going to cut off 2 more strips at the same size from the rest of the paper. Now you have 2 strips for the sides of the pocket and 2 strips for the inside of the cover. Round up the corners with your 10mm corner punch on the pieces for the pocket, of course. Ink the edges on all 4. You want the small strips to go up against the big piece inside the cover. And remember to burnish every time you glue on a piece. And the last one. Then we're going to do the sides on the other pocket, so we need a new sheet of paper. Cut off 1 inch from the side and cut that into 4 pieces that are 6 by 1/2 inch. Round the corners on 2 pieces so they fit the sides of the pocket. Again with the 10mm. Ink all the edges and glue in all the pieces. And don't forget to burnish. Then we're just going to cut off another strip from this piece that is 1/2 inch, and that is to go under the small pocket. Now let's just see if it fits. It does. It just needs to be trimmed a little on the ends. So we're cutting off just a tiny bit. Ink the edges and glue in the strip under the pocket, like so, and burnish. Then we're going to use the rest of this sheet to cover the sides and the bottom of these 3. And the side and bottom of this as well. Start by cutting it down to 9 by 12. Turn it with the right side up and cut at 2 1/2. At 4. At 4 again. And that should leave you with 1 1/2. The 2 1/2 inch piece is for the front to cover up the magnets. So ink and glue, you know the drill. And then the second 4-inch piece we cut is for the back. And the reason why it has to be the second one is because it matches with the 1 1/2 inch piece for the bottom. Now the other 4-inch piece we need to cut into 3 pieces for the Inkpad rooms. They should fit about a 3-inch piece, but be sure to measure each individual room just in case. Now you can ink the edges on all 3 pieces, but you can't glue them in yet because we need to add something under them. And that is the thin black ribbon from the Photogenic Black trim. Now you need to cut 3 pieces at 12 inches. Turn your paper around and add some glue to the tip of the ribbon, about 1 inch. And then place that at the bottom of the paper in the middle. And give that a good burnish so we are sure that it stays there. And then do the same thing with the other 2. And now we can glue them in. Notice how I'm kind of bending the paper so I can get them all the way in before they stick to the bottom. Now let's just check to see if this works. Yay! Okay, so now we're going to do the insides. And these are a little more tricky. For the ends, we're going to use this piece and we're going to use the back. We need two 6x6 pieces. And then we need to make some cuts to make room for the chipboard. So you need to measure how far there is from the edge to the first piece of chipboard. And then you're going to draw that onto the paper. And now measure how far there is from the top to the chipboard and make a mark. Then you're going to draw a line from that mark to the bottom, hitting that line we drew before. And the same thing on the other side, measure how far in the chipboard is and draw a line from the top of the chipboard to the bottom of the paper. Now we need to make some cuts at those lines, and you're going to cut away the thickness of the chipboard. I hope you know what I mean. Just be careful with this because you can always cut off some more, but it's hard to put it back on. And you see those thin strips I just cut off? That should make room for the chipboard. So let's just see how this fits. And I'm sorry you can't see it for my straps, but my right flap is a little too wide on the left side, so I just need to cut off a little more. And now it fits. Now I just need to cut the bottom of the middle piece. And I just press that into the corner so I know how much I need to cut off. Erase the pencil lines and ink the edges. Now when you're gluing this in, you're going to start by only adding glue to the flaps and getting those in place. Burnish with your Bonefolder and then glue the rest of it down. Do the same thing with the other piece. This time I decided to just kind of eyeball it. I held it over the chipboard and made some pencil marks. And then I drew up to where the chipboard should end. And then I cut it out just like I did with the other piece. Checking to see if it fits. And again, when you have it in place, you can just press down the middle piece into the corner so you know where to cut off the bottom piece. And I am just making sure again. Then you can ink the edges and glue that on. I'm sorry that you can't see what I'm doing, but I'm just burnishing with my Bonefolder. And now we're going to do the inside of the big room in the middle. And for that, we are going to use this sheet with all the stamps, but we're going to use the back. Then you're going to cut out a piece that measures 8.5 by 9 inches. And let's just see how that fits. Press down on the sides until the paper slides into the corners. And use a Bonefolder to tuck that in there. And the other side. And when you have the right shape, you can pull it out and ink the edges. Add your glue only to the bottom and place that inside. Press it down and burnish with your Bonefolder. Then glue on the sides and burnish those as well. Now it's really starting to look like something. Now we just need the tray. And for the insides, we're going to use this sheet because look at the back. So gorgeous. Cut off 3 inches from the bottom, giving us a 9-inch piece. And then cut a piece that measures 5.25. And that piece should fit in here. Press that down into the corners. And I can see that I need to trim off a little bit more. Ink the edges and add glue to the bottom. Press that in there. And then when you have burnished, you can add glue to the sides as well and burnish. Then we're going to cut the rest of it into smaller pieces to fit the 3 rooms. And of course, the size of these depends on where you chose to place your chipboard pieces. So you need to measure each individual room and cut all 3 pieces so they fit. Then ink the edges and glue them in like we did with the other piece. And for all the ends inside, we're going to use the rest of the sheet. Again, you need to measure how much you actually need, but I am just gonna start by cutting some 2-inch strips because that is the height of the tray. And now you need to measure how wide your pieces should be. And remember, you can always cut off more. So rather too big than too small. Now ink, glue, and burnish every single piece. And when you're done, it should look something like this. Now for the outside of the tray, we're going to use this sheet and we're going to use the back. Cut a piece that measures 9 by 8 inches. It should fit around. Now ink the edges and place the tray in the middle. Add some glue to one side of the paper and press that up against the tray. Remember to burnish. Glue down the bottom and burnish again. And the other side. And for the ends, we need 2 pieces that measures 4 by 2 inches. And again, ink, glue, and burnish. And let's just put in the tray. Now we need this piece from the scraps to do the inside of the side pockets. Cut 2 pieces at 5 and 7/8. Slide them into the pockets and draw the pattern from the other side, like we did when we did the outside. Cut it out with your scissors, about 1/16 of an inch from the pencil line. Ink the edges, cover the back with glue, and place that on the inside of your pocket. And burnish. Do the same thing with the other one. And use your Bonefolder to bend the paper. Almost done. I just found a piece from the scraps that I wanted to use to cover the bottom of the pockets inside. You just need to measure how much you need, cut it out, ink the edges, and glue them on. Now the bag is completely covered. We just need to do the final details. And we're going to use these 3 buttons. You need to ink the edges on those as well. The red button we're going to place on this side, so add your glue to half of the button and place that on the middle piece, leaving the other half of the button sticking up, and that will help keep the tray in place. Use something to hold the button in place while the glue dries. And then the other 2 buttons we're going to place on the other side. Add your glue to half of those as well and place those so the half of the button is sticking over the edge, just like the red one. And then use something to hold on to those as well. And then we're just gonna give it a minute to let the glue dry. And when it's dry, we can take these off again and put in our tray. Looks like it fits nicely. Then we're going to close up the bag and then we're going to add a sticker to the front. We're going with this one. And we want to give it a little dimension, so we're going to place it on a piece of cardstock from our scraps. Then we're going to fussy cut around the sticker. And for this one, we're using foam tape. So cover the back in foam tape. And burnish that. Peel off all the anti-sticky things and place that in the front of your bag. I'm placing mine right above the closure and make sure you have it in the middle and press that down. And this looks pretty. Now for the pockets on the side. You might want to add another magnet to make it a little stronger, and then you're going to take this sticker and place that over the magnet. Press that down carefully around the sticker so you don't wrinkle it. And let's do the other one. another magnet, and I chose to use this sticker. Place that on there and carefully press it down. And now we're done with the outside. The last thing we need is to add some pull tabs to the ribbons. And for that, we're going to use these 3 stickers and a scrap from the cardstock. We need 3 1 by 1 inch pieces. Then we're going to round the corners with the 4mm punch. And for this, we just need to put in all of the ink pads. And we're going to add the pull tab to the part of the ribbon sticking out. So if you have any excess, just cut that off. Fold the ribbon up and add some glue and place the pull tab on top. And make sure that it can still fold down. Do the same thing with the other 2 and get out your stickers and place them over the ribbon. And the last one. Let's check again to see if they work, and of course they do. Now you are done with your bag, and I hope that you had fun making this. Let's just have another look inside. I hope that your bag is a little easier to open than mine. But this is the result. I am quite happy with it. And if you have made this, please share it on the G45 official community page. I would love to see it. And should we, just for fun, see what we can fit in here? Of course, we have room for the ink pads, all 6 of them. They slide in easily. In the slim pocket, we can fit some stamps or some dies. In the big pocket, we can fit some journaling cards, some die cuts, a big pack of tags, a roll of Scor-tape, and maybe even some ribbon. The removable top can hold some tools, glue, an ink tool, and even a corner rounder. And the big room underneath can hold some scissors, glossy accents, and even a punch. Let's close this back up. The pockets on the side can fit a whole pack of tags and probably some journaling cards and die cuts and ribbon and all that stuff. I really hope that you enjoyed this tutorial, and I hope that you had fun making this bag. This is my second project as a brand ambassador for G45, and I am so proud to be on the team. Thank you for all the support. And if you haven't done it already, please subscribe to my channel and click the bell to be notified about my upcoming videos. Happy crafting!